Welcome to Nintendo Voice Chat for the week of July 9th, 2015. I am your host, Jose Otero, and I am joined this week by Per Schneider.
Hello, Jose.
And Per, we might have a mystery guest as well joining us later on the show, but not yet.
Is it the blow-up monkey?
No, it's not. But before we get to that, let's talk a little bit about Splatfest, which happened recently, last weekend, 4th of July weekend. And I want to talk to you about, you imported a new Nintendo 3DS.
I did,
the smaller model.
Well, it was your fault, really.
Okay, well, we'll get to that. So kick it off with Splatfest then. This past weekend, we got to play. I do like Splatfest, the idea of it. It's an event, right? It's a day-long event where you choose a side in a conflict. It's a choice. This week's choice, or this Splatfest choice, was cats versus dog. You picked a side, cat or dog. You got a T-shirt earlier in the week before the event actually started that you got to level up and get all of the sort of perks for.
Yeah.
And then on the 4th of July, you went at it and tried to beat the other team.
That's when it all counted. Yeah. I thought it was really cool. I mean, I love the idea of games giving you something special on certain days, right? Like, it's always such a treat if you boot up a game, especially when it's unexpected. You booted up a game on Halloween and there are pumpkins everywhere or something like that, right?
That's right.
I really like that. I like that about Animal Crossing, how it connected to the real world. And so, like, you know, you just kind of have a reason to go back. With Splatfest, I thought it was really interesting. First of all, the game looks really cool during Splatfest.
Yeah.
Everything is night, right? Like, so the plaza is all like crazy dance night neon Shibuya stuff.
There's a lot more lights added at night, and they're based off of the lighting is really cool because it's based off of Miiverse posts, which I didn't realize when I played the Japanese version because Japan has already had a Splatfest.
That's right.
And so yeah, they turned the Miiverse posts into like just neon light decorations all over the place, and it looks like Shibuya at night.
And there were some cool posts, right? Like, because people had to pick their team dog versus cat. There were just a lot of things, you know, a lot of cool drawings of dogs and cats from everything, you know, were highlighted, like from Animal Crossing too. And it was just really cool to see. But then when you jump into a level, the paint, I mean, it looks like it's glowing. Like, it's so vibrant, and the colors are so crazy bright at night. It's got this cool, like, almost neon look to it. I thought it was really cool.
When that happens to all the stages, you may have said that. Every stage that you play on during Splatfest. So Splatfest being a day-long event means you can't play ranked, and you can't play any other mode. It is Turf Wars, essentially. They haven't said if Splatfest will force you into the ranked modes of play, like Splat Zones or Tower Control. But the idea is that you are playing Turf Wars on 3 different maps for the entire day. And you are ranking up in a very different system that as you rank up, you'll earn more seashells once the event is over.
Yeah, and the so you win, basically, depending on your level, right? You progress from, I forgot what the titles were.
I was Team Dog. You made the right choice, and you picked Team Dog, right?
No, I actually was Team Cat.
Well,
my
so
daughter made me.
Okay.
I'm actually more of a dog guy.
Okay,
but like,
so you start out as a dog fanboy, and you move up to a dog defender.
And in the UK,
there
are different names for everything. Yes, so that's in the US. Yeah, and then you end up as king or queen, depending on what you are.
Did she make it to queen or king?
My daughter was a queen, like right away. She played the crap out of the game.
Okay, very, very cool.
She picked Team Cat and then forced me to do it too because we didn't want to compete with each other. And so at the end of Splatfest, so basically midnight, you know, the game turns off, Splatfest is over. It doesn't tell you yet who has won.
Yes.
You have to come back a couple of hours later. In the morning, we checked back in, and it said, you know, it tallied the votes and basically said the more popular team of the two was Team Dog, right? As expected in the U.S. It's a nation of dog lovers.
Yes, yes.
And
Stupid
then
cats.
it takes that, but then it takes the second stat is the percentage of wins. And Team Cat actually was 51%.
Yeah, to 49. I was like, what? There were
math.
less of them, and they still worked?
Yeah.
You know what I mean.
Yeah, no, I know what you mean, but I can't stop. But Team Cat still lost because of that, even though they spiffy the second rating is, I think, 2x, right?
So they multiply it by 2 in terms of the win percentage. So the popularity percentage doesn't have a huge weight on it. The win percentage still counts, but because it was an overwhelming popularity, suck it, Team Cat. That's right.
God, man. But I didn't realize that beforehand, because if I had known that popularity play is a factor, I would have picked Team Dog, because I knew it was going to be the more popular team. So that's good. I mean, strategy next time, pick the team that you think will be more popular and then, you know, kick butt.
Okay.
The actual game, I mean, it was just really fun to play and to have this additional ranking during the event, you know, to have kind of more of an incentive. I'm not level 20. I haven't been able to play that much yet, but to players who are already level 20, you have this kind of, you know, sub-leveling thing just for the event that is meaningful.
I'm surprised the game is holding as much attention despite seeing so many people when I play who are level 20.
Yeah.
I have to say that. Like, I'm very surprised because once you don't have a ton to unlock, you're kind of relying on the game to unlock stuff as it goes. And Nintendo's been doing that. They've been unlocking weapons. They've been unlocking. Just this past week, we saw 2 more weapons get added. We've seen stages get added. But I'm just very surprised that they're able to keep those people's attention because I wonder once this is all over, how they're going to continue to do that.
So I think, I mean, obviously they're already thinking about raising the level cap, right? I think, you know, Nintendo is pretty new to the online arena when it comes to actually, you know, player leveling and all that. And, you know, as we've seen, even the pros like Bungie with Destiny had to make adjustments to certain things pretty quickly. And I think Nintendo is going to continue to do that. I think the good news is, though, what you just mentioned is there have been smaller content updates. I actually started a wiki page on our Splatoon wiki. So just Google IGN Splatoon wiki, added a page just for version updates, I called it. And there have been, you know, obviously the kind of the 2 big updates, and there have been at least 5 content updates, smaller releases where they added a stage, or like yesterday they added, or this week they added 2 more weapons, right? The Splooshomatic. Okay then. No, but I think it's really cool, and what you're saying, what we're seeing, I think, is people who are already level 20 still go back in. Yeah. First of all, there are a variety of modes now, right? Like you can play. You know, you can ride your tower, or you can do territory, all that kind of stuff. But now you can also try your luck at new weapons. And when you're already maxed out, I think it becomes more of a game of experimentation too.
Yeah. And Turf Wars is that much fun. I mean, I feel like I'm not that pulled towards ranked play. I know you told me your daughter is holding it down in tower control, whereas I still haven't found enough reasons to want to play that mode, but it's mostly because once it gets that competitive, once it becomes all or nothing. In ranked play in Splatoon, you get very little, if almost nothing, as a reward if you lose. I feel less incentivized to spend time in there if I'm not level 20. That's the reality of the situation for me.
That makes sense. But that's why, that's I think though smart setup, that you're still kind of like you're having fun, you're playing it more leisurely, you're leveling up, and I think once you hit level 20, there's probably a good
think that's just a testament to Turf Wars and how good it is. I mean, I feel like it is a mode that I feel like anyone can enjoy. Like I have a lot of fun with that mode versus trying to be a little bit more focused and a bit more team oriented in a space where I don't have the tools to maybe coordinate as well.
Yeah, and that's it's fair, right? Like with when you're trying to hold the tower, it really becomes apparent that you want to ask another player for help, or you're saying, "Hey, there's somebody hiding right in front."
Like left side, right side.
So I was actually watching my daughter play, and I was like, "Oh, there's a sniper up on the tower. Get the sniper!" Right? Like I was almost like her player 2 in game, but it's still, you know, it's still super fun. And you know, last time I mentioned, hey, I don't know if the roller is going to be good for that mode. My daughter's killing it.
Yeah,
with the
you
roller.
told me with the roller. I couldn't believe it.
She clears the way. She has somebody ride the tower, and she clears the way. And if the other players are smart, they know to stay on the tower while she does that. Clears all the snipers out, comes back, hides behind, like walks behind the tower, painting the floor, and it's just really effective. Right. But no, I think we should talk about the Super Sea Snails for a second.
Yeah, go for it.
Like, depending on your rank and team affiliation in Splatfest, you get a reward of Super Sea Snails. And those you take to the urchin guy, right? Like in the spike in the back alley. Yep. And he will actually add slots to your favorite equipment.
That's right. So if you have a piece of equipment that had a lower amount of slots, so for example, beginner gear only has a primary slot and maybe 1 secondary slot. The best gear in the game has 3 alternative or secondary slots.
Yeah.
You were able to do that. So, for example, one of the pieces I upgraded immediately once this happened was there is a King of Games T-shirt that is a real T-shirt Miyamoto has actually worn. It has like 2 warp pipes, and I think it was for Mario's 25th anniversary, if I remember correctly. Yeah. That T-shirt's in the game.
Oh, that's great.
And so I just leveled it up using the additional sea snails to get more perk slots for it. Now, interestingly enough, though, it doesn't add stars to that equipment. It adds slots. And if you want to re-roll the piece of equipment entirely, let's say you have a piece of equipment that you've already finished doing all the work on, you can use a sea snail to
Which is really cool, because like if you have a favorite design, right? Like that, some people have been complaining about that. I really love the goggles, but the specials are crap. Like I don't like what I've got. You can re-roll them now until you get something good, and then you can build that one up.
Absolutely.
And so, you know, like for example, for tower control, it's good to have stealth swim. It's good to have stealth jump, right? Where you can join somebody on the tower, but they don't see that you're landing there after they killed your buddy. And like, so if you have favorite equipment, you can try and get that combination.
So I'm hoping they commit to once a month for Splatfest, and I think in Japan they may have quietly done that, but I don't think they have committed to that anywhere else. Feel free to correct me if that's incorrect. Email us nvc@ign.com. But from what I can tell, so Japan had a Splatfest in June.
Yeah.
I think it was right before E3 or right after. I
was
forget.
that the ramen?
No, the recent one was ramen. It was 2 flavors of udon noodles, and they're actual udon noodles you can buy in the store.
Yeah.
But there was a red label and a green label, and you basically chose a side.
I see a Doritos one coming.
Oh, imagine!
Cool
oh my
Ranch
goodness!
versus Nacho.
It's brought to you by Doritos. Did you notice too that each of the players in the game are also wearing little wristbands, like they're at a little event?
Yep. Yeah.
Even small touches like that are just very fascinating.
Tension, and like it's one of those games where I feel like, you know, we had a lot of questions when it launched. Will they be able to support it for a long time?
And they have been.
I think the core of the game is really good, and it's something that definitely grew on me. And I find all these cool little touches in that game, and like all the cool little ideas that actually have a meaningful impact on it.
Yeah,
So,
even the way it uses me versus graffiti constantly. It's not just for Splatfest. You see it everywhere.
There's been some interesting graffiti too.
Yeah, there has been. Every once in a while something slips through.
Especially now with a Splush-O-Matic.
Oh, good lord. But yeah, no, I hope they commit to a monthly schedule for Splatfest, and I don't think they have yet. I hope they do. I just think it would be a fun way to keep that community going. But at the end of the day, that's up to them. And I almost wonder what happens when you reach that point where all the equipment has been seen, all of the weapons have been released, specifically more all of the equipment that you wear, because I feel like the fashion choices are what keep you going, right? You go, I like that hat. Now I'm going to start leveling that. Or I'm going to use sea snails to continue leveling that.
Come on, you know what happens
when all that's done, though?
Like, they'll give you a Samus suit. They'll give you a Varia suit. And then you'll go like, oh my God, I got to get this Mario outfit for my character. It's going to happen.
Well, I'm waiting on it. Hopefully we'll hear more in August. All right, so then let's move over to good game. Let's move over to you bought an import new Nintendo 3DS. I did not believe you. I figured you were not going to do it. I was like, he's just saying that.
I always do.
So last week, if you listened to the program, you know that we talked about Fire Emblem Fates / Fire Emblem If. Pear became insanely jealous and then ran over to Amazon?
I actually bought it through Amazon.
Okay.
You know, I import through a couple of websites, like PlayAsia is reliable.
I usually go through PlayAsia.
But Amazon, you know, you could get an import white 3DS, which I really like the white one because I already have a black small old 3DS, and so I wanted to get the white one. And it has the colorful Super Famicom buttons.
Buttons. Good choice.
So yeah, no, I got it there. It was $160, and then basically I just used my credit card to download games from the Japanese.
And you can use a domestic card on that unit in order to purchase games. And we've already talked about Japan's got it great this summer in terms of Rhythm Heaven, Fire Emblem. What was the next one? I forget. Animal Crossing, Happy Home Designer is coming out at the end of the month in July.
I mean, there are a lot of crazy games with strange-looking cats and stuff on the eShop that I haven't tried yet. I mean, there's a lot of cool stuff. You know, like I don't think importing the new 3DS is for everyone. Like playing a game like Fire Emblem, it is in Japanese, and it uses a lot of kanji, and even just the startup process for these machines. Like you'll be signing up for a newsletter that you don't want if you can't read things.
You can read it.
No, I mean, it's a lot. It's
a lot of kanji.
There is a lot of setup now with the 3DS.
Yeah. Well, we've heard from some folks who have either emailed or asked on Twitter, should I do this too? I don't recommend it 100% because you're taking a risk there. You're spending what'd you spend? $160 on this thing? $180 on this thing? Plus tax, plus import, whatever. I also firmly believe the smaller model is still coming here this year. I still think that this is going to show up during Christmas time as an item. If it doesn't, then it's never coming out here. That's how I see it.
I would say, if you're really interested in the machine, just kind of for posterity's sake, you want to own it, wait till Christmas and see if it comes out.
And if they say nothing, then if you pull the trigger on it, I don't blame you.
Yeah. And like if you can always own it if you want a European one, right? Like, but then you're still stuck having to download the games from the eShop or importing games. I mean, they'll at least be in English, but it's just, I think at this point, wait for the next one. The new 3DS XL is great. It's a good machine.
And truthfully, for anyone who's on the fence still about new 3DS, I think you should wait. I mean, they're not giving you exclusive games to chase after yet. There aren't a ton of reasons to own it yet. So if you're waiting for the smaller model, why go early? Why import it?
Only if you're like me, where you sit in a room with Jose and he keeps on talking about Fire Emblem. And you cry.
And you can't take
tears.
it anymore.
I can't. No. So yeah, I started it. It's great. I'm very happy with it. I downloaded Rhythm Tengoku immediately, of course,
which
you
had fun too.
Was a big hit in my house as well.
All right, cool. Well, if you are interested in importing, you should do a Google search. In fact, if you head on over to NeoGAF, there is a helpful Japanese new 3DS import thread. You should check that thread. There's a bunch of Q&A questions in there. There's a bunch of you should try this if you're considering this.
Cool.
Do the homework, but at the end of the day, I don't recommend you do this unless you're absolutely sure. Just, again, there's cost involved, and maybe this thing is coming out here. So why take that risk? It has to. We believe it. And you know what else we believe it's time for? It's time for a break because we have a guest joining us in the middle of the show. So when we come back, the special guest will be revealed. More when we return.
Here we go.
And welcome back. Jose Otero here with Per Schneider and special guest Bill Trinen, Senior Product Marketing Manager for Nintendo's Treehouse.
What's up, Bill?
Hello, everyone. How are you guys doing?
Doing well, man. How's things for you?
Things are great. The hard work of E3 is over. The weather is beautiful up in Seattle, and we're getting ready to hit our sort of fun time of year with things like San Diego Comic-Con and EVO and whatnot coming up. So I'm excited.
Awesome.
Nice. For those who are only listening to NVC, we've got Bill looming behind our heads on a monitor here, so it's as if he was here.
Yeah, pretty much. All right, so then let's talk a little bit about your plans for Comic-Con right now. So Comic-Con is in full effect in San Diego from July 9th, which is today, to the 12th. And you guys have some events going on where you're showing some Mario Maker, some Woolly World. Why don't you talk a little bit about those plans?
Yeah, exactly. So, San Diego Comic-Con for us is really fun because it's the first place that we're able to take some of the games that we had at E3 and let consumers go hands-on with them for the first time. Obviously, with Mario Maker, we were able to do that at the Best Buys during E3. But for San Diego Comic-Con, we're going to have there's some little stage presentations around Mario Maker, somewhat similar to what we did in the E3 booth, but we're going to have a bunch of units set up where people are going to be able to come in and design levels and play levels and all of that. And then we also have obviously you mentioned Yoshi's Woolly World, Zelda Triforce Heroes is going to be there.
Nice.
So we'll have a bunch of folks playing Zelda there as well. And then the other thing that we like to do with Comic-Con, just because there's so many kids and families and it's such a social event, is we like to do a lot of stuff with the characters, but we also like to have some competition there. So the thing I'm probably most excited about for Comic-Con is that we have, for the first time ever, a U13, under 13 tournament for Smash Brothers.
Very nice.
And that's going to be on Saturday. So I'm really excited for that. And we're going to be live streaming not the entire tournament, but we're going to be doing check-ins over Periscope. And then the plan is to, using Periscope, live stream the top 8 matches.
Nice.
And where can we find the Periscope streams?
It's on Nintendo's Periscope channel. So you would download the Periscope app.
Perfect.
And then go to our Periscope channel and be able to tune into those. And I think there's an Amiibo team tournament in Smash Brothers as well.
So you
plus your Amiibo. And I've been kind of practicing myself a little bit of Smash Brothers lately, and I've been training against my own Amiibo, which apparently I did a very good job of training. And now I'm wishing I had gone to San Diego to enter this tournament with my Amiibo.
Nice.
Would you say your Amiibo is the Trin Troll?
Yes. Yep. It's crazy. I somehow managed to give it, I trained it up to level 50, and then it has these effects where it can do critical hits and does extra damage, and I've built up its attack power. And I can literally, this thing, if it hits me like once or twice, can instantly take me up to 60% damage. So it's
That's
very
excellent.
powerful.
Yeah, well, I saw earlier today already, you know, on Thursday we streamed the Mario Maker demo on IGN as well with a new custom level that was just devilish again. I'm really looking forward to that game. It's looking really cool. So, you know, if you're listening to this, go search for the latest Mario Maker footage. We've got the VOD up too.
That's right. So then, Bill, how long has this been the approach with Comic-Con, like having consumers go hands-on with this? I feel like, has this been within the last 5 years, maybe a little longer than that?
Yeah, you know, I'm trying to think of, because Comic-Con it's if you don't have a space at Comic-Con, it's tough to get space, and we had been at Comic-Con for a few years, and then we gave up our spot, and I think probably about 5 years ago now, we got back in, and so we have a space that's on the show floor within the Comic-Con exhibition hall that's dedicated entirely to Super Mario Maker. And then we also have the lounge in the Marriott that's adjacent to the convention center, and that's where we have a lot of different games in there, and things like the Smash Brothers tournament, and there's some Splatoon tournaments. There's sort of like mini tournaments with Splatoon that'll be happening, and then we're also going to be running a Pokemon tournament using Pokemon Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire in that lounge as well. And it's just a really fun space. It's a pretty big ballroom, and it's just constantly packed with people.
So you were last I saw you, we were talking about Splatoon, and you were saying you couldn't wait to get away from me and go back home and play it, right? Did you
Yes.
did you play Splatfest, and what team did you pick?
Well, I picked Team Dog. I ended up though not playing Splatfest because I spent most of my weekend building a fence and practicing Smash Brothers, because this is the first year actually that I'm not going to Comic-Con in quite a while, and instead next week I'm going to be going to EVO because I wanted to see EVO and kind of go see what that scene is like and support them. And since I was going to be going to EVO to check it out, I decided on a whim to enter the tournament, and so I've kind of been trying to practice and get my Smash back in shape so I don't embarrass myself too much.
So I need to ask why you entered EVO. I mean, that is a very competitive scene, and I mean, I've heard you can play Smash Brothers, but man, like what was this to like reclaim Reggie's honor here? Like what's going on?
Well, you know, it's not the first tournament that I've entered. I've played tournaments at PAX Prime in the past, way back when PAX Prime was originally in the Bellevue Convention Center, and so but it's been quite a while, and you know, we've always played a ton of Smash in the Treehouse, and we continue to play a lot of Smash Brothers on Wii U. And I just wanted to go mainly to kind of see how I can do and see if I can make it out of pools or not, and also just to call attention to a really great community that's built up competitive Smash on their own, and that I think is kind of what I'm really excited about, is seeing what we can do to support a community that's already existing, that's really built itself. But do it in a way where, you know, through our activity at Comic-Con, we're really trying to find some up-and-coming Smash players and give them a place where they can come and practice and play competitively without getting completely destroyed by the pro guys. And then at a place like EVO, you know, we try to, you know, leverage some of the fun and excitement coming out of the Nintendo World Championships and steer some of that excitement towards competitive Smash and trying to get more people watching that.
So whenever I, you know, in Japan, I saw for the original N64 Smash Brothers, I saw an under 13, I don't know what the age was, but it was little kids tournament, and like, I don't know, man, those guys were scary good. They were so good. I think we'll be surprised at what we'll see from some of the younger players too.
Yeah, well, it's funny. My own son plays Smash, and he doesn't want to play only against me because he's convinced that I'm going to be a mean father and destroy him. And so usually what he wants to do is him and his friend will sit down and they'll team up against me. And even when they were doing that, you know, I would still usually win, but I've been finding lately that that's not the case as much anymore.
Oh yeah, no, they're catching up.
Yeah, folks definitely should keep their eyes peeled then on pool D46, where you see Bill putting in work or getting work.
What character? Like, how is it going to work? Like,
yeah, what character are you playing as?
So,
or is that a secret? Do you not want to give away your strategy?
Well, it's relatively well known that initially I started off playing Rosalina and Luma, and I still play a fair amount of Rosalina and Luma. I've since transitioned so that I'm probably playing a lot more Yoshi, more than anything else. And Yoshi was a character I played a fair amount of in Melee, and so I'm going to go with the potential of playing either one of those characters. I'll probably start with Yoshi and see how it goes. And then I may have one or two other characters in my pocket should I need to pull them out as well. So we'll see.
So you're saying Toph, good friend of the show, should watch out, is what you're saying.
Yeah, I imagine that he may want a rematch at some point. I think both him and Bobby Scar.
Yeah, I've heard about that match. All right, so then Bill, this is Nintendo's second time, to my knowledge, sponsoring EVO. You guys also sponsored last year. But you, with some publishers, they provide setups for the games that are at the tournament. My understanding is with Melee, you guys couldn't do that, and it's sort of understandable, right? Older hardware, a game that's out of print. Does that change this year with Smash Wii U?
So, it depends on the tournament. We partnered with Apex earlier this year as well, which is really more of a Smash dedicated tournament, and a pretty big one at that happens earlier in the year. And they had a partner that they worked with who provides the hardware, and so we kind of worked with them to ensure that they had what they needed, and try to partner with them to get hardware to them to make sure that Apex was going to run smoothly. And I'm not entirely certain, but I think EVO works with that same partner. And so it may be that the equipment that they got through us for Apex is the same equipment that's getting used for EVO, but I haven't confirmed that. So,
okay.
Yeah. So we're looking at ways to, particularly with the tournaments that we're partnering with, we're not like full on trying to take over a tournament, and we're not going really heavy into investment in it, but we are trying to find ways that we can partner with them to help make it easier for them to run the tournament, and that we can try to help get more views and get more people interested in watching the tournaments.
Got it.
Yeah, Smash is a good pick. I'd be curious to see, how Splatoon fares in the tournament scene over the next couple of months, for the team play tournaments.
Yeah, we're looking at ways to try to do that. It's a little bit complicated because of the online setup, but yeah. So, but we are we've got a version of Splatoon that's a particular demo version that we're using down at San Diego Comic-Con for some of the challenge type tournaments that we're doing down there, and we're going to see how that goes, and then see what option we have for trying to do another tournament with Splatoon in the future. Per, I think hopefully I'm speaking to your heart when I say this, but to me the one game that I've always wished would really make it in esports is Pikmin 3 Bingo Battle.
Oh, man. That's right. Yeah, I played a ton of that, too.
Nice. Good choice.
It's just, you can be so mean in that game.
You can.
I love it.
Yeah, it's just so good.
No, absolutely. All right, so then will we continue to see then sort of Nintendo participating in different ways with different tournaments, to sort of tap into these communities around competitive play and esports with regard to Nintendo franchises? Is that a thing that we're going to continue to see past 2015?
Yeah, and we've actually done it in the past too, and we tend to do it more at events like PAX and San Diego Comic-Con. Obviously, last year at San Diego Comic-Con, pre-launch, we held a Nintendo 3DS Smash Brothers tournament that was open to the public, which was the first place where the public could play the 3DS version hands-on, and was the first. It was more of a real tournament versus the invitational that we held at E3 last year, where we handpicked players. This was really just open brackets; anyone could come and register. And now we see the guy who won that tournament. His name is Larry Lurr, and he's currently one of the top players in Wii U Smash. He played really well at CEO recently, and is probably going to be one of the guys challenging at EVO next week.
Nice. But, is Larry still playing as Bowser? I'm trying to remember. I think he was last year.
He played, I think last year, coming out of it, which is really what's, to me, is particularly interesting about just watching the scene develop, is that coming out of, E3 last year, Bowser was all the hype. And so at that 3DS tournament, there were a ton of people that were playing Bowser, and I think Larry Lure actually won with Bowser. And then it kind of evolved, and there was a point, where obviously Diddy Kong was sort of seen as the top tier character, but with balancing and patches now that's shifted a little bit, and you even see the Zero, who was maining Diddy Kong and is even at this point essentially unbeatable at Smash Wii U. He's now shifted from Diddy Kong over to Sheik, and is using Sheik primarily. And going back even further than that, we also we've held tournaments at PAX Prime in the past as well. We did a Kid Icarus tournament for Kid Icarus Uprising when that game launched on 3DS a few years back at PAX Prime, and we had tournaments for that elsewhere in the country. And in fact, one of the guys that won the championship for the Kid Icarus tournament that we held is a guy who goes by DeBuzz, who is the top Rosalina player.
That's right.
In Smash Wii U.
Yeah, I saw DeBuzz just play recently in a tournament, I believe last weekend, and he did really well there. Okay then, Bill, if we can shift gears a little bit to talk a little bit about you.
We're not here to talk about me.
Well, maybe a few questions just about you. I mean, I'm aware that you started with Nintendo.
Got a couple too.
Yeah, in October of 1999, if my research is correct. And I just want to ask a little bit about sort of where you started in the company and how you moved up to be Miyamoto's translator, if that's okay.
So your research is off by a year. It was October of 1998.
Okay.
I mean, I was just coming back from living in Japan at that point and was looking for jobs in Seattle. And I had actually... It was 98, and when I was in Japan, I had done some work building web pages in English and Japanese, and was trying to find work doing web localization, because that was obviously the peak of the then tech bubble at that point, and was applying for jobs, and this one company said, oh, we don't have a job for you in web localization, but there's a contract job for a translator at a software maker that we're trying to fill. Would you be interested in interviewing for that? And I said, yeah, sure. I need a job, so I'll interview for whatever. And that job was Pokemon related at Nintendo, and I interviewed for it, and it was a contract job, and I didn't hear back, and I thought, oh, okay, well, I must have bombed that interview or something, because there was no response. And ultimately, I heard back from this company, and they said, well, they don't want to hire you for the contract position. And I said, oh, well, okay. They said they just want to hire you.
Oh, wow.
And so they hired me they were going to hire me into the localization group, but they had some paperwork to process. So in the meantime, they put me on contract working on Ocarina of Time debug. And so we were testing Ocarina of Time and this was like in the August, September timeframe prior to the November launch that year. And that included translating conference calls basically on a nightly basis with the dev team and all the directors, which included Mr. Miyamoto and Mr. Aonuma and Mr. Koizumi from EAD Tokyo and whatnot. They were all on the team. And so I was translating those calls. And then I got hired into localization. And I got officially hired, as you noted, in October. And in January... So literally, I'd been there for 3 months. This guy who I hadn't met before, he's bald, and his name's Jim Merrick.
Good old Jim.
He comes walking up to my desk, and he says, "You're Bill, right?" And I said, "Yeah, I'm Bill." And he says, "You speak Japanese, right?" And I was young and naive at the time, so I said, "Yeah, I speak Japanese." And the lessons I've learned since from this encounter is to, whenever anyone asks me a question, is to always ask, why are you asking that question? Because the next words out of his mouth were, how would you like to translate for Mr. Miyamoto at the GDC? And I said, well, what do you mean? What kind of translation? He said, well, he's going to be doing a keynote speech. And I said, okay, wow. How many how many people are we talking about? Like, what's the audience size? He says, oh, not too big, maybe 5,000. And I said, yeah, I've never done anything like that before, like quite that big. And they basically kind of were like, well, we need you to do this. And so I said, okay. And and it was, I mean, it was a lot of fun. We went down and we practiced for a few days. Mr. Miyamoto sent the transcript of his speech in advance, and I translated it. And it's kind of funny because you can find this on the internet. It's on YouTube. You can go find this keynote that he delivered. And listening back to it now, I'm kind of amazed because there were some pretty technical moments in this speech where he's going into programming talk and stuff that, I'm like, how did I even know how to translate this at the time? I still don't get it.
Well, who would ever know?
Yeah.
But what I find really interesting is that, we had, when I was on the Nintendo Beat back in 90, also 98, covering Ocarina of Time, Miyamoto was using Minagawa-san a lot for his translators, right? And Minagawa among the press was infamous for basically whenever Miyamoto would give a very long answer to a question, give you like the 2-word translation, like Mr. Miyamoto says no. And you're like, well, for sure, he didn't just say that. And so, I mean, that must have been interesting for you to be kind of cast into that. Not only did you have to translate, and I think people can obviously tell that you're a very good Japanese speaker. My wife, who's Japanese, whenever I watch events where you're translating, she was convinced that you grew up bilingually in Japan, that you were actually part Japanese because you're Japanese so good. But like, how quickly did you learn like the marketing limitations on where you should be careful about translating something?
Well, it's kind of interesting because with Mr. Miyamoto, the approach that I always take is that it's important to not just get across his point, but to also get across his personality.
Yeah.
Right. And part of that, and Pierre, you probably know this because, Japanese is an implicit language. And so there's oftentimes you're talking about something and there is a related subject that is implied and is background information for the comment that's being made, but is not overtly spoken.
Yeah.
And so for me, it's really important to, when translating for someone, if I know that there's something that he's explaining that in his mind he's thinking of the background for that, is I always kind of, as an aside, will be sure to include the context of what he's referring to so that the person who's hearing the answer kind of understands where he's coming from.
So what you're saying is your translation is the same length at what Mr. Miyamoto is saying, but you may have added something and omitted all the crucial details? Is that what
No, never.
Have you ever had to do that though? I mean, I've been to a few interviews even recently where a prominent developer would say something more than the marketing people in the room wanted him or her to say. Have you ever run into that, or not really?
No, I mean, not a whole lot. There's some times where he'll give an answer and because what's interesting with him is he actually understands a fair amount of English.
Mm-hmm.
And so most of the time when we're at E3, I don't translate questions for him because he understands the questions most of the time. But sometimes he'll go off on an answer that doesn't totally get to the root of the question, or maybe it was a misinterpretation of the question. And so then I'll kind of steer him back and say, no, this was what the question was, and then I may not translate the portion that he answered that was not the answer to the question, but that's more out of convenience than anything.
Gotcha.
Got it.
But what a cool, I mean, just what a cool turn of events. Obviously you started in a different role, and you're not Mr. Miyamoto's translator. You obviously have a day job, right? But it's just kind of cool how that became part of your job through a simple and innocent Jim Merrick question, who, by the way, we interviewed on N64.com very often. He never told us anything. That was the age of the Jedi and A-Reps, where Perrin and Jim, you could interview them for 2 hours, and you walked out and you're like, damn it, there was nothing in it. We always thought we had something until we did the transcript.
Wait, so Bill, you never inherited the power of the Jedi that IGN loves to refer to?
Of course not.
So wait, any other fun Jim Merrick stories then? It sounds like that was quite a request that led to a pretty big piece of your career there.
Well, yeah, and I always kind of, whenever I see Jim and Perrin, I try to remind them of what they've done for me and what they've done to me. But yeah, I mean, there are many good stories that I wish I could share, but I keep them close. So.
Yeah. No, it's I was thinking about Jim the other day. We were talking a little bit about that. You know, Jim was at one point, I think in the early GameCube days, he was working on the Nintendo Network plan, right? Like there was the aspiration to take GameCube online and make it a much bigger part of GameCube to play online games. It must be really cool for him to now see the success of games like Mario Kart and Splatoon that are obviously very, very active online. Not to speak of Smash Brothers and Pokemon, but it's kind of cool to see all that come to fruition now.
Yeah, definitely. All right, Bill, so then let's talk a little bit about, earlier you mentioned tapping into sort of the Smash Brothers community, which, I believe in 2014, it was about 13 years strong supporting Smash Melee. And I bring up 2014 because that was the year that Nintendo had the Smash Brothers Invitational at E3, which was something we had never seen a publisher do at E3. Can you talk a little bit about the plan, the approach, like when did this start in terms of planning at NOA, and then the execution for that plan?
Oh man, now you're testing my memory. I think it started, as with a lot of our E3 planning, it started fairly early in the year that year, and the thing for us was, we knew about the Smash community and their passion for Smash Brothers, and there were two things that we wanted to do, and the first was we kind of wanted to recognize that community and what some of the key players in that community had done to help build it, so we wanted to do that, and we also wanted to introduce that community to Smash Brothers for Wii U in a way that would help get them excited for the game. And so that was really kind of the crux of it. And we talked about, how would we do this? And there, we probably had discussions around doing something a little bit broader, and ultimately decided on, we wanted to invite, 16 of the best players and some of the best known announcers, and really shine a light on the type of competition and fun and community that's been happening around Smash Brothers for a very long time. And in fact, probably one of the best moments of the entire tournament was Mr. Sakurai was backstage, and he was kind of standing back and watching things from backstage. And there was a point where everyone who was participating in the tournament, they all got together for this great big group hug. And Mr. Sakurai saw that and was snapping pictures of it, and was just so impressed at, just what that community really meant to one another and what the game had brought to them. And that, I think, was probably, for me, the best moment of the entire tournament.
Was there ever pushback over it being Smash Brothers, being this big project that, for Nintendo, I mean, Smash Brothers is a very big deal. I mean, it's up there with, the Mario and the Zelda sort of projects of, like, top secret, like, just, we want to keep this under wraps as long as we can.
No, I mean, we knew we were going to be coming out and showcasing Smash Brothers that year, and I think that was, we'd already probably shown off the game in video form the previous year. I think we had the presentation that we did in our booth in probably 2013, and Mr. Sakurai came out and we showed off the Wii Fit Trainer introduction video and the Mega Man introduction video, and he played a match there in the booth, probably destroyed Nate Bildorf, if my memory serves correctly. And so we weren't worried about it from that perspective. I think it was, certainly this was the first hands-on with the game, and so we wanted to make sure, we really had to set it up so that, how do we do this in a way that we give them hands-on with the game so that they're familiar with it, they've got a feel for it, and they can play at a high level in the tournament, but still not have any of the characters and whatnot that are a part of it leak out in advance. And so we just worked with those guys, and they were great, all the players and the announcers, and they were just so excited to be there and be a part of it that they were more than happy to cooperate. And of course, they understood the approach that way.
So then was that like a boot camp? Were they invited early? Like how early? Sort of what time frame or timetable are we talking here?
Well, we had rehearsals the day before, and so we talked with the development team and kind of mapped out, okay, how, these are top players, how long are we going to need to give them for them to get a feel, get familiar with the moves and the different characters and things like that. So I don't recall now off the top of my head, but they had some hands-on time the day before for several hours.
Yeah.
That's really cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love the I love the idea of taking these games and turning, creating events around them. Obviously, there's the whole esports scene. Like, I'd love to see, what happens with Mario Maker in the future. Just seeing the Super Mario Maker, event at E3. That was the event that really sold us on the game. Like, when you see it in a community setting and you have people watching someone overcome a very difficult level, there was something really special about that. I'd love to see like a focus like that again on kind of stage creation and like competition around that. Be really cool, right?
Yeah,
like people
definitely.
creating a level, having to beat it, and then having someone who's never seen the level then try to beat it. That'd be really cool.
Yeah, and it was. I mean, we felt really fortunate because we spent Morgan and Eric on the Treehouse team. They spent a lot of time designing those levels.
Yep.
And a lot of thought went into them, and we actually tested them out multiple times internally and iterated on them. And it was actually a big process, and it was kind of eye-opening in terms of what it took to create 4 levels.
Yeah,
helps you understand development really quickly. But they also, in that process, they had a vision for how they thought people were going to play and get through those levels, and it ended up playing out almost to a T exactly how they hoped it would, and really kind of built those moments that I think gave a lot of excitement to that tournament. And in fact, one of my favorite things that I saw coming out of the Nintendo World Championships was when Brian said, "I think I finally understand esports."
That's pretty good.
That's right. That's right.
No, it's just the atmosphere was just so wonderful. Like,
it was
in a community
very much.
setting, watching this, and I'm sure people who watched it at home had the same kind of had a great reaction to it as well. But when you have a room with like 30 people, or even at the World Championships, you have way more. It's just there's something really special about that, and I can only imagine what it's going to be like once this game gets out into the wild and people create levels with it that we can't possibly imagine right now.
Yeah. So then what was the feedback from the Nintendo World Championship? I mean, does Nintendo or Nintendo of America see an opportunity to continue to deliver that, maybe outside of E3?
Yeah, we don't have any plans right now for what else we might do with it, other than we know people loved it. I think the real, there's a lot of reasons maybe why people loved it as much as they did, and for some people there was a big dose of nostalgia, and maybe it's the thing that's kind of tough to gauge is it the type of thing that you want to do every year, or was it the type of thing that was special because it was the first time in 25 years? And if you suddenly turn that into an every year thing, is it going to be as special, or is it going to feel as unique? And so, we're only a few weeks outside of E3, so I think everybody here had a great time. It was a lot of work putting it together, but I think the team's really proud of what they did, and we're going to be looking at, okay, well, what is there a future for the Nintendo World Championship, or is it something that maybe we'll put back in the drawer and pull out again a few years down the road? Yeah. So we're still thinking about all that.
Okay. So then going back to the levels that Morgan and Eric made, was there ever any fear that players might not figure it out? I mean, not to knock you guys at all, but you're not developers by nature, right? Or that's not something that you generally have to do is make games, or levels more specifically. So I'm just curious, what were you guys going to do if they didn't?
Well, I mean, that's again why I say we felt really fortunate that it played out the way it did, because it very easily could have turned out that they didn't figure it out, and you kind of saw that with the very first level, and I can't remember if it was Cosmo or John Numbers, but the first player in the first level they hit sort of a wall that they couldn't really get past, and then I think the worry began to seep in that, oh man, if he can't do it, can the next guy do it? And if the next guy can't figure it out, and the first level, neither one of them gets very far in the first level. The next levels are even harder than the first level. So what's that going to mean for the next levels? But I think it just, obviously the isolation chamber that they used, where we needed to do that so that one player didn't have an advantage over the other. But at the same time, it could have resulted in neither player figuring out the key to getting through the level and risked, I think, exactly what you're referring to, which is the possibility of a tournament that ends up not being as fun as it was originally intended to. So
I remember the exact moment you're talking about. There were a bunch of conveyor belts. It was, I think it was John Numbers, and it was trying to figure out how to get across and not being able to see that there was one more, I believe, above sort of the border of the screen. And so it was just this, how does he figure it out? And I guess I didn't realize how nerve-wracking that could have been for you guys.
But that was, that partly was why we did so much iteration and testing of those levels. And we would, they would design the levels, and then we brought, we would have people that had never seen those levels sit down and try to play them for the first time and see where they got stuck and see where there were challenges and made adjustments based on that. So.
Well, you can always add a little fairy at the end. Go, hey, listen, when you run to the same spot for the 10th time.
There you go. Hey, Bill, with respect to those levels, I'm not sure if you guys have said anything about this, but will those levels be made available via download or anything? I mean, you do have an online portion of this game, just out of curiosity.
So, Jose, what this says to me is that you did not watch all of the Treehouse Live segments from...
I was running around doing work.
Do you mean when we were at E3 working?
Working, running from appointment to appointment? Come on, Bill, you got to cut me a break. What'd you say? Tell me.
So, at the very end of day one of E3, Tuesday of E3, the very last segment on Treehouse Live, it starts off with Eric and Morgan and just the two of them, and they're replaying through the levels from the Nintendo World Championship. And what had happened was Mr. Miyamoto and Mr. Tezuka had a discussion that day, and so they came on to end the day's worth of Nintendo Treehouse Live by announcing, unbeknownst to Morgan and Eric, that those 4 levels are going to be on the disc in the final version of the game. Which the two of them, you really should go back and watch the segment, because the two of them were just floored. They couldn't believe what they were hearing.
Wow,
they didn't know how to react.
That's cool. That's cool.
That is really cool. We'll look it up.
No, definitely. I'll definitely watch it now. Bill, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us, and definitely good luck at EVO, dude. Like that's quite an order. I know I will be watching, and I will be rooting and seeing how you do.
Yeah, so I think I'm playing. Friday 2 p.m. is when my pools bracket starts. So, hopefully people will tune in Friday for the pools, and I think Wii U is on Saturday, and then Melee is going to be, the finals will be on Sunday. So it'll be a full weekend of competitive Smash for anyone who's interested.
Excellent.
Excellent. All right, Bill. Well, thanks again, and hopefully we'll have you on the show another time to have a more general conversation about Nintendo.
Great. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Bill.
Bye.
Bye-bye. All right, and there you have it, folks. Another episode of Nintendo Voice Chat in the books, right? I mean,
it was great.
That was pretty cool. It was a special thanks to special guest Bill Trinen from Nintendo's Treehouse for taking some time to talk to us. Hopefully, we can have Bill on the show in the future to talk a little bit more generally. We had to keep our topics limited to sort of what was on the horizon, but we always look forward to a chance to chat with those guys.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah. Well, I've got some Fire Emblem to play. I don't know about you.
Yeah, no, me too. Good luck with Chapter 5 if you're playing on hard. All right. That's all I got to say. I've been getting wrecked. But thank you for listening to Nintendo Voice Chat. We are a weekly show on IGN, but we are not the only podcast on IGN. In fact, there's an anime club. There is a Podcast Beyond. There was an awesome, absolutely amazing episode of Podcast Unlocked where not one, not two, but 3 Xbox bosses came out to sort of discuss the origins of the platform, a whole bunch of stuff. Why don't you tell people why they should listen to this?
Well, I actually got a little emotional listening to it, and you can watch the video, or you can listen to it in podcast form in Podcast Unlocked. But yeah, it was the three of the big Xbox leaders, right? Mm-hmm. Talking
Phil Spencer,
about Peter
Moore, and Seamus Blackley.
And Seamus, obviously, launch team of the Xbox. Mm-hmm. Peter Moore, Xbox 360 days. He's now at EA, and Peter Moore was there when Xbox ran into a huge issue, the 3 red lights, right? Yep. And he tells the story of going to his boss and saying, this is $1 billion
Telling
problem.
Steve Ballmer.
What will we do? And Ballmer basically saying, we got to eat that. We got to make this right. Mm-hmm. Let's FedEx boxes out to people. Like, it's really, really fascinating. And then Phil Spencer is just, I feel like Xbox leadership is in really good hands with him. He's a real gamer. You can tell that he knows the subject matter like no other. And so just hearing those three and the different perspectives, they're all three very different people, but like bluntly talk about the experience with the Xbox is really cool.
Yeah, so you should definitely check that out, whether or not, just for the quality of the interview, which was very well done. Hats off to Ryan McCaffrey, fellow editor here at IGN, who did a great job putting that together.
I mean, it'd be amazing if we could ever get together, you know, some of the American leads, obviously, it's always a problem with Japanese translation.
Yes.
You know, it's hard. Like, Arakawa probably wouldn't want to talk about Nintendo today anymore, right? But like, could you get like Howard Lincoln and Peter Main and Reggie in a room? It'd be so freaking awesome.
And this definitely has caused us to raise the bar in terms of guest quality. So we will definitely be looking at ways to do that. But definitely check that out. You can also leave us feedback on the show by emailing us at nvc@ign.com, or head on over to iTunes. Let us know what you think. Leave a show review. We are always curious to hear your feedback. Lastly, you can find us on Twitter. You can find, so Trinen's on Twitter, but what is
Trinen?
Yeah, just Trin, right? Yeah. Okay, at Trin, you can find him there. You can find Per Schneider at
Per IGN.
And you can find myself, Jose_Otero. Thank you very much for listening, and we will be back next week with more Nintendo Voice.
It's the thing.